All right, brothers and sisters, we are back on WVON 1690, the talk of Chicago. You're listening to Straight Words with Brother Naba'a Richard Muhammad, editor-in-chief of the Final Call newspaper. Brother James G. Muhammad, contributing editor of the Final Call newspaper. Brother B.J. Murphy, I'm here with you every Tuesday night. We're here hosting this show, and we want you to be here every Tuesday from 9 p.m. until midnight. Tell everybody we're talking some straight black talk. We are black, strong, unapologetically pro-Farrakhan and our stance on subjects that are happening in black in America. So you can get a chance to hear alternative conversation that you don't normally hear during the week. So this is a special time of the week right here on Tuesday nights on WVON 773-591-1690. 773-591-1690 is the number to call in and join the conversation. So, Brother Naba'a, how you want to get into this hour? We got our special guest, Brother Demetric Muhammad, who's talking about COINTELPRO coming up.
Yeah, we got some callers holding.
Yes, sir. We got 3 callers holding.
Okay, brothers, we're going to get you in, but we're going to have to get you in fast because we got Brother Demetric waiting, but we do want to hear from you. So let's try to get right to our points, please. So, and go ahead, brother.
So, brothers, get to your points real quick. We got 30 seconds for your comments so we can move ahead to our next guest. Go ahead, Brother Ronald. You were holding on. Brother Ronald, go ahead. 30 seconds. Brother Ronald? Okay.
You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, let's move on to Brother Cliff.
Let's give him 90. Let's give him a minute and a half, brother BJ.
Okay.
Give him a minute.
Yeah.
Will you tell black people 30 seconds? That give them a minute. All right. So, brother Naba'a gonna be gracious. So, Brother Cliff, go right ahead, sir.
Hey, assalamu alaikum, brothers. I made my cash donation, and so much respect. I hope that helps out. Listen, all I was simply saying is that I would simply say that, listen, I can't expect all the brothers for the Nation of Islam to come to me, but they're there. And as a Christian, I gravitated based on the truth. I went to the Nation of Islam, even though I'm not a member, but everything just seems to make sense in terms of what's best for black people, even to the point where it's telling us, the group is telling us, the minister is telling us what to eat and how to eat. Who does that? You know, what other organization in the black community is doing that? So all we have to do is just follow and adhere and listen to the nation, to the minister, and we'll be okay. So what else can we do? You know what I'm saying? And so just listen to the truth. Thanks for taking my call. Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
All right. Walaikum salam. Brother Barney, assalamu alaikum. Go right ahead, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, family. Thank you. And for my Christian brother, tell them we Christians too. We are one crystallized and one to follow an example of Jesus the Christ. I just want everyone to remember where we are in history for our brother Demetric come on and tell us how we got there. Remember the brother Minister Farrakhan. Remind them that Minister Farrakhan said that Trump will take us to hell in a rocket ship. And as we see now, Trump started off lighting the fuse. I mean, 1,500 pardons, and he had to let him out immediately. That's a rocket ship. Massive energy, disruptive shifts. You know, take out this, take out that, would have no second thought on the repercussions. That's a rocket ship. Massive trade disruptions, talking about tariffs. Any tariff on China equals higher prices and taxes and tariffs on the American people. They're going to just raise their prices. So I'm just saying to the people, come on into the Nation of Islam to get your X on your lamppost. That means your thinking. And we'll let Brother Demetric Cohen tell us how they have been manipulating the children of Israel all this time. So I thank you, brothers. May Allah bless us.
Thank you, Brother Barney.
Thank you, brother.
And I wanted to say to Cliff, I want you to know how much we appreciate you and your contributions that you make pretty much every week. And that's what we need So, brothers and sisters, look, you can go to straightwords.com, and you can find ways to help us, whether you use Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, or even Apple Cash. And we're coming into our second year now.
Yeah.
So let's keep going, and we got to pay VON tomorrow, by the way, just so you know. But let's just so you know, straightwords.com, and you can text me at 312-480-9775 for more information. Okay, let's get right to our esteemed brother Demetric Muhammad.
So
We got him.
Yes, it's Brother Demetric.
Brother. Yes, sir.
Wa alaikum salam. Wa alaikum salam, brothers. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, for coming on, and we appreciate you. Brother Demetric Muhammad is a student minister in the Nation of Islam, as well as a scholar, author, lecturer.
Researcher par excellence.
Researcher. Yeah. I wanted to get right into this, Brother Demetric, and thank you for coming on. But I wanted to start here. And actually, I got a couple things. I don't want to forget them. Matter of fact, no, I gotta be. I'm gonna go with this one. This is from Bernice King on Twitter. Please don't act like everyone loved my father. He was assassinated. A 1967 poll reflected that he was one of the most hated men in America. Most hated. Many who quote him now and evoke him to deter justice today would likely hate and may already hate the authentic king. Hashtag MLK. But Demetric, the FBI and the war on Dr. King. Are you telling me that the FBI had a covert war against Dr. King? Did that really happen?
Well, the short answer is yes, my brother. But let me first of all say, Brother Naba'a, I'm very honored to be on with you and your listeners tonight. We're very grateful for the privilege and opportunity to be with you and to talk about this very important subject as we are on the heels of, once again, Dr. King Day. And we are always amazed at how during this time of year there are so many who come forward to pretend as though they loved Dr. King when he was alive and pretend that they stand for what he stood for. But I remember several years ago, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan really doing a work of rescuing the legacy of Dr. King away from the individuals who really have had as their agenda not just to assassinate Dr. King, but to also to rob the modern day generation of young people of the real ideas and the real stance that Dr. King ultimately took during the 5 years almost that he lived after the I Have a Dream speech. So we know from what came out beginning in the early 1970s with the Church Committee reports and how the American people were at that time first exposed to what we know today to be COINTELPRO, that Dr. King was at the center, along with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Stokely Carmichael, and many other great champions of our people's struggle. They were at the center of what J. Edgar Hoover called was his denial objective, to deny Black America of the emergence of a Messiah from among us. And so for anybody that's, living today and that is somewhat naive enough to think
that the FBI did not have a war against black leadership, where Dr. King and others were the targets. Maybe they've been living under a rock, but it was in this city that I reside in Memphis, Tennessee, in 1999, where it was no longer to be dubbed a conspiracy theory, for it was in this city in 1999, not that long ago, maybe about 25, 26 years ago, that a court ruled that the United States government was responsible for the assassination of Dr. King. So to answer that very pointed question, my brother, it is a resounding yes, that for a long time, one of the worst enemies of black liberation in this country has been the federal government and its various law enforcement arms.
Brother Demetric, I want to get to a point. First of all, I want us to get into more detail about what that meant, but I want to make this point, and hopefully it makes sense. But the miscasting of black leaders. Dr. King has been so misrepresented that on his birth, the holiday, around federal holiday for his birth, not only is it a mockery because the same people that were responsible for his death and his defamation before his death and his condemnation before his death, major civil rights leaders, the American press condemned him, political leaders condemned him because he connected the war in Vietnam with the domestic failings of America at home. And he refused to tell young black men in the ghettos to be nonviolent in America, but then go halfway around the world to kill the Vietnamese. But he has been so misrepresented that on what is supposed to be his birthday, Brother Demetric, you got people giving parties with Dr. King they have altered his image, where he basically looked like a player or a pimp. And they got, oh my God, Rosa Parks dressed as a stripper. Then there was another image where, I'm not even going to say the rapper, but one of the popular female rappers. They got this other image of, they take Dr. King, of course, his picture, and superimpose it into this other image with this young, kind of very sexual black female rapper. And it to me, this shows the disconnect. This shows that we don't know this man. This shows we don't know his suffering. This shows we don't know he had real enemies. And it shows that we obviously, if we don't know that, then we don't know we got it. I don't see how we can, if we don't know that, I'll just put it like this from my view. If we don't know that, we don't know we got enemies today. And we're like children that think things just happen magically without any history coming before, without any impact. But I'm done with that. You can comment on it or move to your next point, brother. But to me, it shows the level by which we have been deceived, and in particular, our young people. Because the enemy gave us a man that they killed. But the man or the image of the man that they gave is not who that man was.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Brother Naba'a, and it is something of a very wicked phenomenon that has manifested itself among the masses of our people over the last, decade or more, where it is as Jesus talked about in the scripture when he says, smite the shepherd, scatter the flock.
And so if you look at how the legacies and the memories of the champions of the black struggle have been misrepresented to the current generation of young people. Most of the time in K through 12 education, they receive very little in the way of an education into the history of their people's struggle. Fact about it, many activists today are decrying the fact that high school textbook publishers are reframing the black experience from one of being brought from the shores of Africa and enslaved in America to one where Africans got on boats coming to America to be farm workers. So our babies are at a great disadvantage in terms of knowing the truth of our people's suffering and knowing the real character, the real ideas, the real growth and evolution of many of the great ones. And when you want to talk about Dr. King, it's very important, in my humble judgment, to emphasize that Dr. King, after 1963, when he was no longer a dreamer and he began to engage with the ideas of black nationalism, even going so far as to say that he saw the benefit of what he considered a temporary separation en route to a totally integrated society. And these are very critical aspects of Dr. King, who was, we have to remember, a very young man. He was assassinated. He was cut down in the prime of his life, only 39 years of age. So he was still growing and evolving. And in 1966, around the time of Savior's Day, he had a very famous meeting with the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he and Dr. King got along very well, and that Dr. King's eyes began to come open to many of the things the honorable Elijah Muhammad was sharing with him. Dr. King was learning that for the first time. And so, you know, it is a great travesty that our babies are out here and they think that it's okay, you know, to be disrespectful of people that gave their life for our struggle. But in hindsight, the enemy has so thoroughly dumbed them down and has kept them separate from the wisdom of the elders that many of them are just innocently participating in what has now become a cultural norm, where you mock and you use as a joke people who literally died trying to see our people be free.
You know, Brother Demetric, and when Brother Demetric says 1963, that's, of course, the famous March on Washington. And that is the speech where you most often hear, or the reference to that speech, I have a dream. But that speech was really about Dr. King saying that America owed black people.
That's right.
And black people have been trying to get payment, but every time they try to get payment, and we're not talking necessarily monetary, some of that too, but we're talking about a redress of grievances. That every time that we have presented this check to get a redress of grievances, the check has come back marked insufficient funds. So, Brother Demetric, what are some of the things, that were done? And brothers and sisters, look, the targeting of Dr. King just didn't start in 1963. I want you to know that. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, it was revealed that a photographer who was rather intimate in terms of documenting Dr. King and his struggle was actually an informant for the federal government.
Yeah.
And I know that some of, Dr. King's contemporaries have said, well, we didn't have nothing to hide, and so if the brother made a little extra money. Who does it hurt? I just have to say that doesn't cut it with me. If you are supposed to be loyal to a man, but you are being paid by people that want to destroy the man that you say you're loyal to, that you love, that you're walking with, who is allowing you access. So that's one that we know about. I don't know, Brother Demetric, if there are others that you know about, but what were some of these dirty tricks and plots and things that the feds did in trying to destroy? And I want to use that language very, very deliberately, in trying to destroy Dr. King.
Yes, it's Dr. King and his story is fascinating for a variety of reasons, because most people are aware of the assassination of our brother, but it came out some years ago as well that there was interest in the family of Dr. King, going all the way back to Dr. King's father and grandfather. They were spied on by the FBI, and they were also particularly targets of one of the early founders of the NAACP, Joel Spingarn, who also was a military intelligence officer. And for some reason, they spied on Dr. King's father and grandfather. This is before Dr. King ever became Dr. King. And so this family was in the crosshairs of very powerful, nefarious forces within the white power structure and the American government. And this is critical to appreciate, because we also know that Dr. King's brother died mysteriously. We know that Dr. King's mother was killed. You see, so there was something about the family of Dr. King that drew the attention, of those in the upper echelons of the white power structure. And so by the time Dr. King comes along, he is, of course, a target of sabotage, because it is quickly seen that he's a man that has mass appeal, and that the masses of black people were resonating to his beautiful oration of the Word of God and his ability to synthesize, the gospel of Jesus Christ with the need for activism and social justice. And so Dr. King was quickly viewed as someone that needed to be watched, monitored, and stopped if you were going to preserve the status quo in America. And so they used all of their bag of tricks on Dr. King, as they did on Brother Malcolm, as they did on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Stokely Carmichael, the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And this involved using informants, which is one of the more benign actors that they would use. But one of the more malignant actors was the agent provocateur that was also used, sent into organizations to become a member of those organizations. And while a member of those organizations, they would commit crimes in the name of the organization, thus giving law enforcement agencies the legal justification to come in, investigate those organizations, to arrest its leadership, and to destroy that organization, thus weakening our collective movement for liberation. So all of the dirty tricks, that they did, even trying to send poison pen letters to Dr. King's wife, even being in league with groups like the Anti-Defamation League, who also spied on Dr. King. This didn't come out until the 1990s when former staff persons working at the ADL, revealed that, they considered Dr. King, the ADL leadership, considered Dr. King a loose cannon. And a lot of what really escalated the campaign to destroy Dr. King was his embrace of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the nation. Because if you look at the memo where Hoover spells out, the whole idea of a Messiah, and he's looking at certain ones as potential candidates for this role of Black Messiah. When he gets to Dr. King, he says something very interesting. He says that Dr. King could be the Messiah from among Black people if he ever gave up his obedience to white liberal doctrines. And so, when they saw Dr. King embracing the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, well, hey, this is the signal that he's giving up some of his obedience to white liberal doctrine, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did not preach a white liberal doctrine. And then news articles came out about how King and the Muslims had formed a partnership to fight against poverty in the slums of Chicago, and you saw these pictures in the press of Dr. King and Honorable Elijah Muhammad shaking hands, smiling. I mean, this literally struck fear in the heart of the white power structure that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam, the so-called Black Muslims, and Dr. King and the civil rights leaders will come together and form what Dr. King ultimately would talk a lot about in his later years, form operational unity. The idea that, we don't have to all agree on every line item, of official church doctrine, to necessarily form a Black united front. And so, Dr. King was a target. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a target. Minister Farrakhan is a target today. Any strong man that is born from the precious womb of a Black mother to have the love of his people and to have the word of God and to be effective in moving the people, that man just becomes a target of the enemy.
Wow.
Brother Demetric, so the FBI made phone calls to Coretta Scott King and to the home of Dr. King. They tried to destroy his marriage. They sent Dr. King communication saying he should commit suicide. They sent him communication accusing him of all kinds of acts. And this was non-stop. But when we look at the meeting with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1966, but we had Sister Sajda Muhammad, who's working on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum, and she says they have discovered other photos of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. King, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad appears to be wearing a different suit. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad appeared to be wearing a different suit. So she's looking into and trying to get the actual facts on how many times they actually met. So in 1967, Dr. King denounces the Vietnam War. He went from being Time Magazine's Man of the Year to this notorious figure. He went from being a member of what was called the Big Six, which were the major civil rights leaders, to Whitney Young, who was one of those major leaders, condemning Dr. King, because now Dr. King wasn't just talking about the rights of Negroes. He was critical of the administration of Lyndon Johnson, and the destruction of lives and the wasting of treasure in destroying the people of Vietnam. And so I think that these are the things that we now imagine. You're a man who is principled, who has always called for nonviolence, and it's been okay. But now, when you call for nonviolence in terms of America's foreign policy, see, it was okay to tell Negroes to be nonviolent, right, while white folks literally beat them to death, strung them up on trees. It was okay to talk about the redemptive power of love and suffering when the violence was being perpetrated on us and our blood was being shed. But when Dr. King, Riverside Baptist Church speech, by the way, and there's another one that he gave, oh my God, I think it's at the University of California, Berkeley, which isn't as widely credited. But it is a very powerful speech on this same issue. He could not, and would not call for nonviolence at home and close his eyes to massive violence abroad, where he called his government of the United States the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. Brothers and sisters, we got to understand what that meant when he said it. We really do, because we've been so blinded by this man.
Right. That's right.
And if you're young and radical like I was coming up, I always had I always wanted to know who the fighters were. So the way that Dr. King was presented to me, I never really respected him. Because I could not, in my mind, see the rationale for people putting hoses on you and dogs on you and beating black women and black children, and you say you're going to love them anyway. It was only, and I'm just being honest, it was only after I came into the Nation of Islam at 26 years old that I began to learn about the real Dr. King, what he stood for, why he was killed. He wasn't killed because he talked about a dream in 1963.
That's right.
He was killed because he was talking about the other thing that he did was he criticized the capitalist system. At one time in one of his books, he wrote basically that I am more socialist in my thinking. So all of that becomes a major problem for him, because this man was not some docile, controlled Negro. Why was it so important, Brother Demetric, for this narrative of the docile, controlled lover of everybody, misportrayal of Dr. King to exist? Why was it so important for him to be after his death? Reminds me of things said about Jesus after his death. But we're not going to get into that right now. But why was it so important for him to be recast and then fed back to us?
It's a great question, Brother Naba'a, and I think of, that phenomenon that is very common, the reinterpretation, the revisionist historians who seize upon the life and legacy of revolutionary leaders whom were thorn in the side of the governments of their day. And so they're given back to their people as harmless totems, as icons, to basically pacify the masses who really are oblivious to what the great man or the great woman actually stood for. And it's done to keep the revolutionary spirit of a Dr. King, of a Brother Malcolm, of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad from infecting and inhabiting a new generation of young warriors who are growing day by day more and more dissatisfied, you see. So remember how in the scripture it talks about a work needing to be done to unite the hearts of the fathers with the hearts of the children, and to unite the hearts of the children with the hearts of the father, and that work would be done by a man called Elijah. Otherwise, God says, if this work ain't done, I'm going to come and smite the earth with a curse. So if you look at Black America today, we almost look like we're under a divine curse because, as you mentioned earlier, the young people don't respect Dr. King. And a lot of us didn't respect him like you, and I was similar, because he was presented to us as someone that capitulated. He was presented to us as someone who was not really very strong. And he was only given to us as a man that had a dream, you see. And so, again, I emphasize, how come the masses of our people are not introduced to Dr. King post-1963, I Have a Dream, is because that Dr. King was a man who was no longer dreaming. That was a Dr. King who was awakening. Again, I go back to the fact that Dr. King was a very young man. And when you're young, you are coming open, you're learning, you're evolving, you're experimenting, you're trying to come into who you will ultimately become once you mature. Dr. King was only 39. So I would imagine by the time he got a chance to sit with a much older Black man, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he was very excited because, first of all, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. King were both sons of Baptist preachers. They were both sons of the state of Georgia, and they were leaders of mass movements of their people. And so, by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's words, after that meeting, Dr. King was very open and amenable to the things the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was saying. So imagine, again, to the question, if you give young people that Dr. King, 1964, 1965, 1966, 1967, 1968, you now give them a Dr. King that they can love, respect, and admire, not as a man that capitulated to the powers that be, but a man that was a growing and evolving revolutionary, a man that began to actually form alliances with the likes of Stokely Carmichael and the Black Power movement, with the likes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. All of these progressive steps, were giving him the potential to really be much more, I would say, radical than the image that we have been given of him. So, long story short, the rulers of America want to douse the revolutionary spirit that's rising in the breast of young people. And so in order to achieve that, they have to give to them our leaders in a very watered down representation. Brother Naba. Thank you, brother.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. But Brother Demetric, I had put myself on mute. Brother Demetric, one of the other things that struck me with this false image of Dr. King, lies, and then those lies being deified. It is like his loss is treated as a great loss to his family and in some ways, to America. But I think the way the enemy has deified its false image of Dr. King, this false idol of him, there's a personification of an individual and his loss, and it's too bad that this happened, but not nearly enough, and I would say almost no focus on what his loss meant to the struggle for our people. When you have a particular person at a particular moment in history, I was watching a little show the other night, and one of the characters talked about the masses of people moving in mass actions, making history, but it also talked about inflection points in history that were touched by specific people. So my point is, I think that we as a people have to consider what the murder, and we should be real clear on that, like Bernice King was. What does the murder of Dr. King mean to our community? And what does the federal government owe us based on his destruction, the pain caused to his family, but also a man, as you said, who was young and growing and who had displayed already a sense of brilliance and courage and moral clarity. When you lose that kind of man, it's bigger than an individual. It is someone who is serving the masses of the people. What does the federal government owe our people for this destruction of the life of Dr. King and all of the suffering that his family has had to endure?
Brother Naba'a reminds me of a very powerful lecture delivered by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in Atlanta, Georgia in the early 1990s. It was called Add It Up. And when we begin to talk about, what does the government owe, the minister ultimately concluded, you're really going to have to give us the whole damn country. Because when we talk about the assassination of Dr. King and Brother Malcolm and the attempted assassination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Stokely Carmichael and just the overall work of the federal government to destroy the movement for Black generation, that's not an isolated effort. That is part and parcel to the overall oppression of our people that begins with slavery, suffering, and death, that begins with robbing us of the knowledge of ourselves, our names, our language, our culture, our God, our mores, folkways, and norms. All of this is a part of the overall saga of a people who were brought to America to be made slaves. And our collective experience involves our suffering, producing men and women who were children of destiny, born to liberate us from our suffering. And yet those oppressive forces in America targeting them for destruction. So we couldn't put a dollar value on the life of a man like Dr. King, because Dr. King is still giving life to a new generation today. He may be physically gone from among us, but there are those who, when they get a chance to see the true Dr. King, when they get a chance to be exposed to his true message, his true ideas, when they get a chance to see who he really is, not just the sound bite of "I Have a Dream" that they roll out every February for Black History Month programs. Then any young person getting a chance to see the real Dr. King, they're inspired. The same way with Brother Malcolm. Brother Malcolm is still impacting young people today. Those that get a chance to know the real Brother Malcolm, to read his words, to learn of his life. You see, so these kinds of men, when you take their life, you issue a blow, a damaging blow to an entire people. And that's why we have to, as a people, become much more security-minded where our great ones are concerned. You know, there's a very popular photograph that was published of Dr. King, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Coretta Scott King, and there's another brother, I believe he's an attorney. It's one of my favorite photos of them because everybody is all smiles. And probably the biggest smile of every person in that picture is the smile on the face of Coretta Scott King. And I don't know why Coretta Scott King appeared to be so happy that her husband was getting together with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But I can imagine, because in many of Dr. King's lectures, he would talk about how when he was organizing in the South, the Klan and the white races in the South would ring his phone all day with threatening phone calls, telling him, we're going to blow up your house. We're going to kill you and your wife and your children. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he was talking in one of his lectures about how at a certain point it really began to get to him, you see. And I just like to believe that when Coretta Scott King saw her husband beginning to form a brotherhood and a relationship with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believe she knew that Mr. Muhammad's followers, they protect him very well. Mr. Muhammad's followers, they look out for their women and their children. And I like to believe that she was particularly excited that that initial meeting might blossom and flower into a great relationship, for it would mean that her husband, for the very first time, would have some real security, that her family, for the very first time, would have some substantive protection. Because, again, when you want to talk about losing a Dr. King, it's very, very hurtful, not just to his family. Of course, his family is hurtful to them, very much so, but to us as a people, because those kinds of men, they don't just come along every day. So when the enemy cuts them down, we all suffer, and we suffer greatly.
Thank you, Brother Demetric. Brother BJ, we got anybody? Can we get them in quickly, maybe a couple minutes? Then we can give Brother Demetric a minute to close.
Yes, sir. Real quick, Sister Tawan, make your comments on WVON with Brother Demetric. Go right ahead, Sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Alaikum salam.
Walaikum salam. Tawan.
Yes, I just wanted to be able to give the greetings to my brother. I have my brother that's the voice of Black Radio. I have my brother that's on here that's our contributing editor. And we have our editor of the Final Call newspaper.
That's right.
We have we have our writer, teacher, researcher, who, when they say you cannot exhaust the words of Allah, he keeps writing those books to help expand my knowledge of the truth of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I am just y'all don't know how excited I am to hear you all together tonight at this time. I mean, I keep trying to tell my family, and I know I gotta hurry, but I keep trying to tell my family, come on straight words, and, you know, it's late at night, but sometimes after the day when we hear all the craziness, and then we come on straight words and we hear black men just espousing the truth and justice and being bold and unapologetically pro-Farrakhan, I get excited. And you know, Brother Demetric, I always get excited when I learn this stuff. So I really appreciate you all. I really, really do. And I just wanted to say thank you and assalamu alaikum and happy Savior's Day.
Happy Savior's Day to you, one of our big supporters. Brother Demetric, we got about a minute, so tell us how we can follow you, how we can order your books, how we can, I don't know if you got lectures out there we can get, but whatever you got, I want the people to know where to get it.
And praise be to Allah. Well, we have our website, researchminister.com, and as we were having a conversation, I was going over a report we did some years ago, Brother Naba'a, germane to this conversation, where we did a report called Was Dr. King a Black Muslim? And we go over 14 major points where he and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were very closely aligned together. And it's a really, really fascinating report. And I was thinking about that when you mentioned the extra photos that they found in the home, because in that report we have words from Minister Lucius Biar, who talks about how the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. King had become secret friends. And so I too believe, based upon some of the things that he said, that they had multiple meetings. And so that report is available for a free download on our website, researchminister.com. You can also go to researchminister.com and order our books. And we have a YouTube channel called Researching the Minister, where you can get access to our latest lectures and research presentations. And so we thank you so much, Brother Naba'a, for the privilege and honor to be on with you and your wonderful audience tonight. And we look forward to coming back whenever you would invite us again.
Oh, brother,
hey, brother,
we will definitely. And go ahead, Brother.
I was going to say real quick, Brother Demetric, my favorite book is Manhood, brother, that you wrote back in 2019. So I'll give you a shout out.
To Allah. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate your support.
Yes, sir. This book helped me. Y'all go to page 302 if you're lost about something about your manhood. This brother right here, this book right here really helped me a lot. So I just want to let you know that, brother. Thank you so much.
Brother, thank you so much. I'm honored, very honored, brother. Thank you so much for your support.
Yes, sir. All right, brothers and sisters, that's it. You can check out. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, bro.
It's not Lou Myers. It's let me see. I got the picture here. Let me see if I can zoom in on the caption. This is Al Raby.
Al
Raby. I see the Al Raby, Mrs. King, Dr. King, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that's a beautiful, beautiful photo.
Yes, sir. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Brother Demetric. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, brothers.
Yes, sir. We'll be inviting you back.
Yes, sir. Go to straightwords.com, everybody. Straightwords.com. We're at the top of the hour. You can donate. You can help us, support us. Straightwords.com. And you want to hear what Brother Demetric said, you can tune in tomorrow. We'll have it up on the website, straightwords.com. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about some things happening in Black America, the roundtable discussion. Brother Naba'a, Brother James G., and myself. We'll be back right here on WVON 1690, The Talk of Chicago.
The Talk of Chicago and the voice of the nation is 1690 WVON, Berwick, Chicago.